All right, let's wrap this thing up here. So, I'm not a futurist, but what do I think are the next big things? What are the things that our team is focusing on right now? What do we think are the big things? Widgets. The idea of little things that don't require a web browser or anything like that, things that can run on cell phones or run on your desktop 24/7. We really think that widgets are going to be a big thing in the next 18 months. So we're really focusing on how you build these standalone widgets. I'm going to give you an example of a widget that's not newspaper related, but we'll give you an excellent example of how a great widget works. We have a widget, my wife found this widget called Ding. Ding is ran by Southwest Airlines. And the way the Ding widget works is when you sign up for the Ding widget, you type in fly out of the most. And then every few days, they comb through all of their systems reservations and realize what flights don't have enough people on them. And then they send a ding. Your desktop will literally ding. And when you click on it, it says, if you can fly to LA this weekend on this flight leaving at 4 o'clock, it's $59 one way. $59 from DC to LA. So they're just getting rid of their excess inventory. So my family uses this all the time. I mean, we are taking, my wife will call me and say, look, if you can be home in an hour, we can fly to Orlando tonight for $29. And I'm like, man. So this is a great widget. And we have to be as creative as what Southwest Airlines was. We have to build things that serve our readers and give them the things that they want. Apple TV, what Apple TV represents, the first incarnation is bad, by the way. Don't buy it. But what it represents is exactly where we need to be focused on. The idea, this is much better than a DVR. When they get everything rolling on this thing right, imagine the idea that you missed Lost. You wanted to watch the TV show Lost, but you missed it. And you can't find it on your on-demand from your cable system. But you were able to pull up a box like this that was connected to the internet, where through an internet connection, you can get any show you want on demand. And what happens if the shows you want aren't produced by a television company, they're produced by a newspaper? What if the weekend review of the Capitol was produced by the definitive source of American politics, the Washington Post? I mean, what if you could get on-demand programming in high def sent to your TV? This is going to be big. I mean, no one understands how big this is going to be because Apple's first implementation was so kind of crappy. But you wait till you see where this goes over the next 2 years. I mean, I'm very confident about this. If you've used Google, there's something called Google News Alerts. And the way Google News Alerts works is that what if you do a search and then Google will ask you, well, would you like us to run this search for you every day or every other day or whenever, and then we'll email you. Well, what if every news site in the country did this? So it's persistent search, where we could email you whenever the mayor that you hate gets mentioned in our newspaper or whatever. And what if we did something that Google didn't do, and we made it so that it was completely platform independent, so that when there's a story about the mayor, it calls you, or it sends you an instant message on AOL, or what if it was completely device independent? The way persistent search sent in a platform independent way, I think is going to be huge coming up. I think what the iPhone represents, the ability to have full-blown applications running on a phone. Again, just like with Apple TV, the implementation in first version is not good. But wait till you see what's going to happen in version 2 and version 3 of this thing. And when other cell phone companies break into this, the idea that a cell phone is more powerful than your computer, it will be here. I know it will. And then we've got to be watching these social networking sites. They're very good. They're very addictive. There's a reason why Rupert Murdoch looks like a genius now. Everybody skewered him when he paid $500 million for MySpace for a site that's now worth probably $3 billion. I mean, it's because these things are good. They're very powerful. So, how do you change the culture of a newsroom very quickly? I can only tell you what happened in Naples because it was the fastest I've ever seen a newsroom change. In 1 year, we went from maybe 5 reporters caring about the internet to maybe 5 who didn't care. And the key to that change, as far as I can be able to tell, there wasn't a recipe. This is me documenting after the fact. It was the first newspaper I'd ever worked at where the executive editor really cared. Every newspaper I'd ever worked at, the editor, the publisher would say, it's very important that you focus on the internet. And the editor would say, I am. And then as soon as the publisher would leave, he or she didn't care about the internet. This was the first editor where they really cared about the internet, would make changes in how the newsroom was staffed, what their workflow looked like. I mean, really did things to make the internet work. Lucky enough to get early buy-in from the sports department. They were recording their interviews, they were calling us with game scores, and the publisher rewarded that. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I mean, I don't know how many of you would have this open door policy where a reporter would just think about coming into your office. But in Naples, this is what happened. The sports writer went into the publisher's office and kind of unannounced and said, hey, what do you think all the stuff we're doing on the web? The publisher said, oh, I love it. I'm so proud of you guys. I've been emailing it to all of my colleagues. And everyone is just in awe of what you guys are doing. I couldn't be more proud of you. And the sports writer goes, oh, that's fascinating, because we can't see any of it because our computers are so bad and so old. And we hear it's really cool, though. I mean, it's just like what you said. We're hearing what we built is great, but we can't see it. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, our computers are 7 years old. You have us doing cutting-edge technology on machines that can't even show it. So we're just having to take your word that it's good. He says, are you serious? That day, IT ordered all new computers for the sports department. And the rest of the newsroom goes, whoa! How did the sports geeks get those? Lots of positive encouragement. Whenever a reporter did anything, there was all this love fest. We treated them like rock stars, including the publisher. He would go into the newsroom and say, Katie, saw your thing. He'd be purposely talking as loud as he could so the whole newsroom would hear it. And he would email our CEO for the company and BCC the whole newsroom. I mean, it was very subtle like that. The debut of the podcast, we had no idea our audio podcast was going to be popular. We had no idea radio stations were going to pick it up. It helped a lot with the credibility. Our publisher did the coolest thing I've ever seen a publisher do. He ordered 50 iPods from Apple, had them custom engraved with the Naples Daily News logo, went to the executive editor, went to myself, and said, give me the names of the 50 reporters who are doing the most to make our new media strategy work. And then one by one, he gave them an iPod and said, I wish I could give you more, but please know that I appreciate all of it. They did nothing for the goodwill of our newsroom as powerful as what that did. I mean, it really made a lot of difference. Our team had $20,000 in our budget where we could give bonuses, and we only gave them, we didn't give out $50 bonuses. I mean, somebody was doing something amazing. We were giving out huge bonuses, $1,000 bonus. And it was the best $20,000 we could have ever spent. No amount of software could have created this sort of buzz that these bonuses would get. And then when you have the top editors from the biggest newspapers in not only the country but the world, from Yomiuri in Tokyo, from the Washington Post and New York Times, come visit your news operation, and then only want to talk to the reporters who are doing interesting stuff online, it makes a difference. The rest of the reporters are like, hey, I want to talk to them, It was very powerful. So this was how it changed in Naples so quickly. I think I might actually be done. I'm sorry. I have like 7 or so 8 more slides. I hope that this helps. Does it? So, I will show you what are the impetuses for change. And I'll quickly wrap this up. I've been given this presentation to know that what one of your questions is, or one of your thoughts is, and that is that this will never work at my newspaper. And the answer is you're absolutely right. And here's why. Everything I showed you was developed for Lawrence and Naples and the Washington Post. Every newspaper is going to have a different strategy. In Topeka, we focused on politics. In Hannibal, Mark Twain. In Augusta, Georgia, the Masters Golf Tournament. In Juneau, Alaska, tourism. In Lawrence, Kansas, KU basketball. In Florida, and Naples Daily News, real estate. At the Washington Post, it's all about politics and the local news. Every newspaper has its own unique strategy. So maybe it's a youth sports or an academic site. Maybe that's what you need to build. Maybe a local university site related to a local sports team or information about your local university. Photo galleries from your proms. I mean, don't be ashamed of running tons of photos from the fairs and those sorts of things. Photos from your readers. Maybe it's a local political site. Maybe it's a tourism site. Maybe someone very famous is from your town and you build a huge site related to them. Blog from your reader. Or maybe you have a quirky city council person who's nuts and you have a blog from them.